this edition of Expert Speak. Today, we have a very esteemed and respected member of the strategic community and a thought leader from Bhutan, Dasho Karma Ura, to speak to us about applying the principles of gross national happiness in the post-COVID world. Sustainable and equitable social economic development, environmental conservation, preservation of culture, and good governance. These are so very important areas to be applied to the recovery of the global economic and social and security and political order in the world of tomorrow, as COVID has challenged us. And all of these form pillars of the gross national happiness indicator that Bhutan has pioneered under the leadership of His Majesty. And Dasho Karma Ura is one of the world's foremost experts on the subject. Welcome, Dasho, to this edition of Expert Speak.
Thank you very much. I hope it will work because we are doing through a mobile phone.
It will just be fine. Welcome, and may I say that we are so delighted to have you on board on this edition of Expert Speak. Please enlighten us on how the world of tomorrow or the world of today, as we face the recovery of post-COVID or during the COVID, how these principles of the gross national happiness and the pillars of gross national happiness are so very relevant ever more than before today. Can you please enlighten and elaborate to us on this?
Sabia, you mentioned the pillars of gross national happiness that has come to us from the fourth king of Bhutan, His Majesty Jigme Sengye Wangchuk. He has been succeeded by the fifth king of Bhutan since 2006. You know that gross national happiness is now defined further in terms of 9 domains, such as psychological well-being, community vitality, cultural diversity and resilience, environmental preservation, health, education, living standard, good governance, etc. And now we are in uncertain times affected by the pandemic. The gross national happiness has become even more starkly important because of its emphasis on aspects other than material goods and services that are emphasized by GDP. It has become suddenly obvious to everybody that in these times of uncertainty, we have to be sustained by psychological well-being, by a boosted connection within the community to nurture and to sustain it through good governance, which must act very fast to alleviate the hardships of the people. So it has the gross national happiness's relevance seems even more now.
Right. May I ask you how these principles can apply to several tiers, one at the level of our respective nations,
Yes.
to the level of collaboration between the nations,
yes,
especially in our immediate neighborhood, and third, to the level of the society, and fourth, to the level of the individual. I think they
So
apply
you're
also.
asking, yeah, you're asking cross-border
Yes,
application at the individual level and at the more collective community level, I
correct.
suppose so. Um, uh, I think with regard to the cross-border level, uh, in a way, the interaction, sphere of interaction has been reduced, as you know, between the neighboring countries. Uh, but uh, the sense of responsibility we have towards the community at each other's borders have become ever more important for the safety and security of each other, you know. While we limit the exposure of a random kind, the uh, flow of essential goods and commodities, medicines, uh, medical personnels, equipment, food, fuel. This has to go on since they are the sort of survival lines, so to speak. So we have to find a far more safer method of delivering these things across the borders. At the same time, for the safety and security of communities living in the border, uh, uh, the regulation border has become far more important. Uh, you know, it is very difficult because of porosity of the border, uh, but the management has to be enhanced. And any border can security and management of the border can be enhanced only through mutual cooperation, only through mutual cooperation. So cross-border infections, community transmission along the border, all have to be kind of now measured. Measures have to be taken while the flow of essential goods have to be kept up. So that is at the cross-border level. But of course, there are much larger issues looming amongst the nations, and that is that how, if it goes on and on, since there is a network of interdependence amongst the people across borders, how this can be restored, because you know, there are migrant workers whose livelihood depend on the economies across the border. For example, Indian workers working in Bhutan. You know, it is not only mm, um, medical, but if issue, but if it gets prolonged, how would they live? How would they sustain their livelihood? They've been working in Bhutan for a long time. For the moment, taking a compassionate and uh, and cross-border sense of responsibility, the workers from India who has been, you know, daily wage earners in Bhutan, in such places like Phuntsholing, they have been provided with food support from Bhutan, for example. This is this is an aspect of the greater responsibility Bhutan has taken under His Majesty the King. Now, towards a solution of this pandemic, nations have to cooperate in future. Um, see, um, health is a public good. So without discrimination of borders, vaccinations have to take place. You know, so both sides have to take, all the countries have to take a regional approach to this. I think that's at an international level. And I'm sure there are mechanisms being developed within the SAC and BIMSTEC region, how to do this. For the moment, I think everybody is preoccupied with fighting the fire. But we have to think of long term also. Now, at the national level, in terms of practice of GNH, it is become very obvious in Bhutan that the vitality of community, the rejuvenation of solidarity, the triggering of small-scale compassions across the country has taken place under the leadership of His Majesty the King. The expression of solidarity has been amazing in this country. Everybody is chipping in with whatever they can to volunteer in terms of their own time, own service, in terms of goods, machine, equipment, foodstuff, donations to the His Majesty's Relief Fund has been massive in this country. So I think sometimes this kind of pandemics bring the kindness out of human beings unexpectedly. I think we should one positive aspect of this kind of pandemics is that human nature changes for the better. While during normal economic time, everybody is competing and thinking individually, this kind of collective challenges bring out better side of human beings. So the strengthening of community vitality of GNH, that is also at the root of Buddhist culture, has been, to my mind, very impressive. But it requires stoking, it requires stoking. Just like selfishness is stoked, compassion also has to be stimulated, so to speak. Now, at the level of individuals, I think, everybody would feel greater sense of mortality, since no one can safely say they are in a glass bubble and will be saved from coming across infections, and from my point of view, it makes people more humble and more human. We are facing hardship, sense of hardship, sense of impermanence, sense of lack of self in a way, and that is a sort of basis of common humanity, I think, and this kind of collective challenge also makes us think of greater things. What are things of greater value in a society? Well, it is so obvious that above all, we value health. Everyone values health, everyone. And towards that, we need to build permanent infrastructures of health. What are they? They are deep and responsive social bonding that can provide us support, emotional, physical, social support at times of crisis. Another aspect of good health that is become so obvious in a vivid sense to us today is high quality environment in terms of air, water, bright light, blue sky, and greenery. These are, in a way, the pandemics, because it has reduced the level of economic activity, the externalities, bad externalities from economic activities such as pollution, effluence into the water, all have come down. And for the first time, we can see quick recovery from nature, So I think at the individual level, sense of mortality has emerged amongst human beings far more poignantly. At the same time, the valuation of infrastructure which supports your health has emerged so strongly. At the community level, the articulation and manifestation of solidarity, fellow feeling, unity has emerged in Bhutan. So these are very positive experiences in my opinion.
Yes,
Yes, Subraya.
that is so inspiring to hear, and I'm sure even across the globe and where we are, we see similar sort of trends in the society. More compassion in people, nature healing itself, increased awareness of one's mortality at an individual level, greater appreciation for public health as a general good. Dasho, which brings me to my next question, which is that come a few more weeks and when the lockdown ends, though Bhutan has not been so affected, but in India, we expect the lockdown to end in a few weeks. And hopefully it will end across the globe in a few weeks, months, whatever. The risk we run is to go back to business as usual.
Yes.
As you very correctly said, things have to be stoked and nurtured. And
yes.
if we do not stoke the right areas, we risk going back to the way we were.
Yes.
And how do you see things panning out
Yes.
in the future?
I think the crises can be great friends. Crises can open major opportunities. Crises are inflection points in the movement of society, and they can be used as sort of springboards to change. Before we sink into convention and live in quagmire of business as usual, now within Bhutan, as an example, I can tell you that since March 7, when measures were put in place, social, economic, medical measures, interesting things that have happened innovative, interesting things that have happened are economic measures in this country. For example, I would like to say that those who have lost, in a pandemic like this, we lose ourselves in mitigating immediate issues. And they have to be, of course, taken face on. And the immediate issues are income loss of the individuals who lose jobs, which are negatively affected by COVID, such as tourism, hoteling sector, So income loss we have to address. And that has been addressed in an extraordinary way by the leadership of His Majesty the King, by providing relief to all those who have lost job. Yesterday, 13,000 job losers receive relief, a monthly release. And in that sense, Bhutan is a generous, not a powerful, but very generous and sympathetic country. You know, relief per month is 12,000 rupees. That is quite high by any standard. And His Majesty wants people to have normal life, people to feel a sense of resurgence, belonging, solidarity in this country, you know. So we have been able to share this prosperity in that way, you know. The second thing is, you know, not only income, but there can be, in many vulnerable sections, food shortages. Food shocks can be suffered. And Bhutan has been already, since last month, distributing free food across the country. And we have stocks of 6 months now. And third one is that not only food, by the way, the Royal Welfare Office has been distributing soap, multivitamins, and vitamin C, especially to the young and the old. How marvelous, isn't it? Going to that detail. All those who are above 60 are receiving this package, you know, in addition to food supplies. The third shock or thing you can suffer is indebtedness. You know, those people who are on the margin can sink because of indebtedness, because interest rate is not waived, because repayment has to be done on time. But it is not only the marginal borrowers, but also the big borrowers and business can be hit permanently. And in the most extraordinary, innovative, revolutionary, in fact, this is revolutionary. Nobody has done it. No economies I have surveyed so far in response to COVID. Bhutan, His Majesty and the Bhutanese government has waived all interest rates on all loans for all borrowers for 3 months. For 3 months. It's a big forgiveness. And I must commend that the banking and the financial sectors in this country, some banks are owned privately, are fully committed to this royal vision. So they are ready to sacrifice their profit. Isn't this a flowering of kindness, generosity, and solidarity? This is, in my opinion, a unique response to pandemics. So, so these are the things that has so far been done. I am sure more will unfold if it lasts longer. But we foresee that the situation may not return to normality for about a year. But the measures that the country Bhutan has taken, I think, are worthy of study from others, by others. Capitalism always wins in all situations, both in tragic and in bullish, happier situation, it wins. But in this country, even the banking sector, which is the apex of capitalism, has certainly changed its behavior. and shows an aspect of, almost forget about being pathological capitalist institution, but has suddenly shown a compassionate side, compassionate aspect it embodies in his behavior. So this is rather marvelous. I think this is rather marvelous. Now you asked about the future, Sabaya.
Yes.
Can you ask me the?
Yes. No, how do you see the future of these principles? The steps taken by His Majesty are indeed unique, worthy of the whole world taking note of compassion and generosity and the nurturing of human values.
Yes.
And as the lockdown ends,
Yes.
and a possible race towards chasing GDP numbers begins.
Yes.
In the name of recovery.
Yes.
How do you see these values kind of enriching that process?
Yes, His Majesty recently addressed the population, national address, in which a marvelous and wondrous statement was made. I think it's a remarkable one, and he said that the health and psychological well-being of the population at the moment is far more important, overridingly, compared to preservation of material wealth and economic resources, he said. So this is, in a way, putting human beings, health of the human beings, mental and physical health, above the economic concerns. So I think the key lesson is that people sometimes feel compelled to end measures of lockdown because the economy has to be restarted. Okay, economy has to be restarted because there are many vulnerable and marginal people, economically marginal people. So that is, but in society which has unequal distribution of wealth, there are many people who can be philanthropic and benevolent and share their wealth to support vulnerable, marginal people, while the safety measures are kept in place for a longer period. What if you are hit with a second wave and a third wave? What if the lifting of the safety measures result in death of many more older people? What if? I mean, that is a major sacrifice, and we should avoid that. But the livelihood of ordinary people must be addressed also, and that is the responsibility of the state. Where economy or the market fails, that is the responsibility of the state. That's also the responsibility of more benevolent people, benevolent institutions. So so on the lockdown, I mean, there is a trade-off, I must say. There is a trade-off. Untimely lockdown lifting would have repercussions. I think the lockdowns must be carefully weighed. Lockdown lifting must be carefully weighed and medical coverage must be increased heavily, really heavily actually. So while we do all these things, the important thing you ask is how can we have a perspective on the future out of this current pandemics. We must use these pandemics and its lessons very fruitfully. Otherwise, it would be just another tragedy. All tragedies must result in great lessons that improve human values, that revises the rough side of economy, rough and competitive sides of the economy, that unleashes new forces to tackle the ongoing underlying breakdowns in the environment, resource running down. So we have to use it as inflection points. We have to use this really as turning points. So the gross national happiness as a navigational tool towards this transformation, towards this desirable transformation, could be an offering. We in this country are using these pandemics to to improve our economy even further towards self-reliance in food production, towards possibly changing the transportation system to be less reliant on fossil fuel, to reboot the employment of young Bhutanese, to make them engage in digital revolution, because that the internet and digital thing has suddenly become a highway, during the pandemics, new highway rather than the physical highway. So I'm sure that this exposure and dependence on the global network of supplies of things, I think people will rethink a little bit now. People will rethink, because similar crises may strike us more frequently than they did in the past. You see, last century this century we already had the economic recession in 2008, financial recession. Just before that we had SARS and MERS, and then the Asian crisis some decades ago. So this kind of we are feeling the impact of this global crisis little more frequently, and so I think we have to limit our exposure to a reasonable degree, meaning that we have to develop antibodies in our societies and economy, just like we develop antibodies against all diseases and viruses, and that will be lost if you do not have memory cells. Even in the case of coronavirus, once you get infected, body, so to speak, creates memory cells, which will prevent reinfections. You remember the invading virus. likewise, the body of politics and economics must also have memory cells, how to deal with this kind of pandemics and the economic and social negative effects, and transform itself to develop immunity. And that means no mindless dependence on globalization. In a way, the nature of globalization itself could be, will be restudied, I think. So I think I've been speaking too long, I think.
No, thank you so much. I think you, as you so succinctly put that the body of politics needs the memory cells to remember what we are going through as a race, as a world.
Yes.
And the future should incorporate that into the direction that humankind takes. And I think Bhutan's example is one of those examples in which we should revive our memory and renew our memory on how to move forward.
Yes.
On that note, I want to ask you a question on a specific sector. Recently, we have been conducting some studies, and a few things have emerged, out of which the agriculture sector seems to have received a lot of focus amongst especially the policymakers in the northeastern region of India, which are adjacent to Bhutan and in the vicinity. And it's a move back to sustainable agriculture, equitable use of resources, and with a view of conservation of the environment.
Yes.
All of these are, of course, founding principles in the GNH model.
Yes.
I also read today that Bhutan has made a focus on agricultural self-sufficiency. And we keep hearing ideas about agricultural cooperation, not global agricultural chains, but regional and local agricultural supply chains, which can generate and increase livelihood for people.
Yes.
Can you share perspectives from Bhutan on that?
Yes. The afternoon April shower is beating the tin roof above me, so the sound quality may go down now. Can you hear me?
It's fine. We can hear you clearly.
Okay. So you're absolutely right. And paradox of market economy is come through during these pandemics. That is that the urban areas of Bhutan, which where people have higher income, are exposed suddenly as less self-reliant, less self-sufficient in food compared to the rural farmers. And since the supply chain in the urban areas linking to India mostly for food supplies have to be kept active, it also means that it is more fragile in terms of health also. The urban group is more fragile in terms of health because the lines of supply and withdrawal of waste have to be kept alive, kept as before actually. And those who earn less income in the rural areas are in this sense now, because they are more self-sufficient in food, are more safe. So this is a paradox. Now, as you mentioned, the agriculture farming sector is not only a source of food, diverse food production, but is also a source of maintaining eco services, uh, which we do not estimate. Especially bad economists don't estimate the environmental services. And for the ecosystem services of the farming sector, as well as for health of the whole nation, food production has to be organic and kept up. That style of farming, which is artisanal, which is deeply indigenous, knowledge-based, which is less harmful for nature instead of industrializing agriculture, must be kept up. At the same time, for those kind of services that they render to the environment and to the economy, the payment system for them must be recognized, and it must be higher than what we do today. So that the rural low income is banished. I think that must be banished. The divide between the rural and urban agriculture and services versus industries is mainly one also of environment and of income, and that must be narrowed, and that can only be narrowed if we pay decent amount to the organically produced food, which is less harmful to the environment and good for human health. So amazingly, as the tourist guides have become unemployed in this country, as teachers have become free from their daily routine of teaching and taking care of the student due to lockdown, as judges have found themselves without litigants in this country, they have turned to kitchen gardening and farming. It is a wondrous transformation. They are for the first time getting taste of healthy life. So this is a turning point, This is a turning point. And the Ministry of Agriculture has seized this trigger, used this leverage to distribute seeds and develop land and appetize the civil servants who are always wielding keyboards and such things to put their fingers into the soil. So it is, in a way, this pandemic has many positive features, as long as people don't lose lives. And this hasn't happened in this country so far. One must see this as a positive change. One must see this as some signal to change our behavior and evolve in a slightly better way by changing our nature, by reviewing our values, by studying in what way can we make our institutions more just and efficient. Efficient in the sense that we do not, as His Majesty said, spend too much in the delivery system and where the outcome is too little, bureaucracy is fantastic in doing that perverse thing. So, I think bottom line is that unnecessary loss of life is a absolute loss. But minus that, all human events we can see from many points of view. And if greater things come out of this crisis, and then we will look back at it as one setback in human history, but that has led to different paths, a better path.
So we really look forward to that, really. And that should apply at the individual level, how to change ourselves, how to cultivate better habits now, how to consume little less, as it has suddenly become possible that we can consume little less, and then our quality of life improves. And it has happened during pandemics. Our life has improved in some sense. Social bonding has increased, though though less greater physical distance, but more social empathy. Time has been released. We have more time to think about, to do exercise, to meditate, to conduct conversations, you know, and to reflect on life in general, you know. Traffic is traffic is far less. People are not mindlessly cruising on the highway. It's only meaningful travel is taking place, you know. So birth of many interesting things that we have been awaiting from the point of view of GNH.
Thank you, Dasho. That is so inspiring. And as you said, as long as the loss of life is prevented, we have many learnings. And
Yes.
The example of Bhutan is, and what all the factors that you pointed out for us in general is exemplary and worthy to be memorized in our DNA for the future.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my last question, which is, what do you think are the mechanisms, say institutions like yours and individuals and institutions, how do you see their role in stoking this memory so that we remember this in the future and spread this knowledge, and share this knowledge, so that, you know, a new direction, as you said, many doors have opened up because of this setback. Provided we think in that direction, provided we see those doors and venture to walk through them and explore. How do you see, what do you see the step
I
being
think,
taken?
you know, Sabaya, as you know, viruses and bacteria occupy the planet more than human beings and mammals, you know. So they're everywhere. They are inside our body, they are outside our body, and sometimes there is conflict between our bodies and them. But as you know, there are many useful bacteria, friendly bacteria that are moving from body to body, human being to human being, animals to animals. Think tanks are also a bit like positive bacteria and viruses. So think tanks may be small in number, the density may be very low, but their responsibility to carry forward permanently useful ideas and spread them, diffuse them in society. In that sense, we are sort of, you know, minor positive creative bacteria and viruses. And their effect is larger when they network. So, you know, so that the positive ideas can travel in a circuit, you know, from think tank to think tank. So we should make cooperative efforts together. We should exercise whatever positive influence we have on the media, since we ourselves have no communication extension. And so that is towards public information, but public communication dependent on the media is fragile and transient, transient. So one must aim at education of the young people, as well as nudging government policies, since only policies transform into public allocations, and public allocation at the end matters a great deal in the immediate term. But in the longer term, infusing young minds with right ideas is, as you know, very valuable service, very valuable service. But talking about valuable service and positive ideas, in our short life, like you and mine, in our limited capacities as humble researchers, we have very little impact, honestly, very inflex. But we should always believe, and I have believed, that if something is worthwhile to do, you have to do regardless of the whether you get obtained results of it. The nature of the act is important. So so I hope that Asian influence will continue also along the similar martyr-like situation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's a very, very profound takeaway for us. And these series of videos and you coming in line is yet another step towards that. And so again, Dashu, thank you for coming online.
Thank you.
We look forward to taking this forward with you.
Goodbye. Thank you very much. Opportunity was great.